discussion. And the Emporia Recreation Center has been exploring the possibility of building a new property. Information will be provided regarding the history of the relationship between the school district and the Recreation Center. And presenting tonight, we have Dr. Allison Anderson Harder, Mrs. Pam Strenathan, Mr. Tom McAvoy, and Mr. Mike Halbert.
All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of the history, and I dug into quite a bit of this, and I've also made contacts with KSDE to ask some further questions. I'm familiar with these statutes, but have not ever been directly involved with them, have known other districts that have, and so reached out and had some further communications. So you're getting two of the statutes. They're the 2023 statutes. It's the 12-1927 and the 12-1926. And what these are establishing are the statutes as to how we're in this position right now for the school district to establish the recreation district and be involved in that. So I'm going to go back in history. Sometimes I'll joke and I'll say, well, you know, back in 1935, but seriously, back in 1953, which I can say I was not around that time. That was when it was established, is when the resolution for that agreement between the city and the schools became into play, and it was passed to the board. Now, the next thing that came out of that was then it starts getting into, which you'll see in these statutes, which you can read, it starts talking about the mills and the levies and things that are coming through there. So because we're able to provide that taxing entity for the rec district, and they cannot do that themselves, that it goes through the school district. So when you read the statute, we cannot decline it, we cannot not do it, it happens. And it's more of a flow through. The board, you approve the budget for the school district, which shows that flow through, but there's no decisions that are being made. So there's no authority back on the district. So then the question might be, which is in the statute too, well, what if someone objects to the 8 mil? That would have to be voters going into doing that and objecting to that 8 mil. And remember, on our budget, there's two. There's the code 84, which is the resolution, which is the 8 mills, which is $2,157,779. That is flow through. And then you also have code 86 on there, which is the 337,000, which falls under the benefit side of that. So back in 2010, there was resolution. There was two passed at that time. One is when the statute had changed, when the increase went from 4 mills up to 8 mills, and two resolutions were passed at that time. The proper process for that I would recommend moving into this next school year when we do budget is those resolutions there should be passed by the rec district, not by, according to, I would recommend moving into this next school year when we do budget. Those resolutions should be passed by them. And it would go through the same resolution just to show. Right now, in 2010, it was passed by the school district, which really should have been passed by them. We approve that. Once it goes through their cycle, then we approve it on our budget. But we should not be doing that resolution. It should come. So I'll recommend that when we get to that point. And then you'll see on our budget, we have the charter resolution, which is the same resolution which was in 93. And what we'll do is once that resolution is passed this next year coming up by Parks and Rec, the rec, then what we'll do, we'll put that into ours and we'll list which one that is for, to update to make sure our budget has that current one in there. The other thing too, just so that you know on statutes, which is really nice, if you go into the budget, there's a line there that gives you all of the statutes and how it relates to each of those. So the two that I just shared with you tonight, those are listed in our budget line. You see those, the ones we have to turn into the state. So if there's any time you're curious about anything that's on that budget, the statute is automatically attached to that where you can go check that out. The other thing that comes into play is if you see on 12-19-26, That statute right there tells you about how the membership occurs and who serves on that and how, who's responsible to serve on that. So it's a 5-member board right now, and 2 representatives from the city, and then 2 from the school district. And then the ex officio is either by the city or by the school district, which serves as the treasurer position on there. And they each have terms. If you read through that, it'll tell how long each of those should serve on there. So that kind of, I know I've had some questions about that, of how do you establish that board and how is that board established, so. Any questions on any of that? It's really, it's flow, like I said, it's flow through. There's not a lot. If they ask for 8 mil and we levy more than that, it's not money we get and it's not money that we can give to them either. We have to stick.
Welcome, Tom. Nice to see you.
Hello. Okay, where do I start?
You need us to have our names and addresses
Yes.
for you? Okay.
No? Problem is, everybody knows where I live. Okay. I was going to go over the 3 types of recreation commissions. There are 3 different types. There's a city established rec commission, there's a school district established rec commission, and then there's a joint recreation commission between the city and the school district. And I'll give you a little, I was going to tell you, if you really want some great reading at night before bedtime, go over the Recreation Commission statutes, 12/1922 to 12/1928. You'll sleep good in about 5 minutes. No. Real quick, brief history of why we got to where we are today. Sometime in 1950, the City Commission and the School Board got together to form a Recreation Commission after the YMCA moved their services out of town. The city passed an ordinance. The School Board passed a resolution proposing the establishment of a joint recreation system and to levy an annual tax not to exceed 1 mil per state statute. So there were 3 separate votes that happened over from 1950 to 1953. The first one was a vote to the public to a joint city school district recreation commission. There were 6,289 voters, and it failed by 78 votes. And it was the wording, what Lee Barron told me, the wording on that ballot and the next vote that came up was to provide recreation services to the citizens of USD253. Okay, very broad. The next one was in April 3rd, 1951, so it was right after that. They won again. They had 3,052 voters, and it failed, 1,072. So that was not a good time to go out and vote. So you got together again and changed the wording of the ballot measure to say to provide the youth recreation services within the school district, something like that. And it passed. 661 votes. So that means it was established, and then we moved in, the first Recreation Commission moved into the old YMCA building that's no longer there. It was where Lowther South was, right to the east, and until we built the brand new rec center in 1977. And I'm going to briefly just go over the maximum mill levies that were allowed. During that time, you can only levy 1 mill, okay? Sometime in the early 80s, and I do believe it was somewhere around 1982, rec commissions were allowed to levy a tax up to 3 mills, which ERC did. In 1990, the maximum levy increased to 4 mills when the state legislature implemented the tax lid. And there were, if you remember that, there was a tax lid for a while, which the ERC did go up to the 4 mills. Then in 1999, there was this, state statute 795040, which suspended tax levy limitations. So I can tell you with rec commissions and other public entities, especially rec commissions, we could go up as high as we wanted. It wasn't 1 mill at a time. We could go up as high as we wanted, what the board wanted. And Mike was on the board. I think you were on the school board and the rec commission? No, you were on the school board.
In 1999?
Yep.
No, I wasn't on that.
Okay. 2010, the Employee Rec Commission was allowed to increase our mill levy authority to 8 mills. Now, how that came about, and Pam touched on this, the Recreation Commission needs to pass a resolution to increase the mill levy authority. Okay, we were at 4 mills. We asked to go up another 4 mills. The school district passed a resolution to authorize the maximum mill levy authority, which was 8 mills. Okay, and this was done by our Rec Commission Resolution 2010-1, which Roger Hartsook, who served on the school board for a while, was our chairman, and he signed it. The school district passed Resolution 2010-6. Grant Riles was president of the school board and signed it, and the vote passed overwhelmingly by the school board. So the monies did not come in until the following January, once our budget, which included that a year later, came through. So why did, and initially the Rec Commission, out of the 8 mills, only levied 6.5 mills at the time. We didn't take it all the way up to the authority, to 8 mills. So why did ERC need the increase? Well, there were a couple of big things. One, we saw a major usage growth in programming. I mean, it blew up. I mean, we had a lot of people using. We didn't have the resources to be able to accommodate everybody. And then there were the projects. Until then, all the ball diamonds and everything we had in town, all recreation facilities were constructed with donated monies, with a splash of ERC funds. I mean, Lee Barron had to go out and beg, borrow, and steal just to get a service club to donate some money for this and that and everything else. And that's how the facilities were underfunded to begin with. And so what we put forth, what I proposed to the board and what the board moved ahead on were facility improvements. One, Soden's Grove baseball diamond renovation, which took place in 2013. The Flint Hills Optimus diamond renovation, and that's down in Peter Pan Park for youth baseball. Then during all this, Trisa soccer folded, and they came to the rec center about, can you take over soccer? They had, at the time, they only had 5 board members, and they had to run everything, including the maintenance out there. So the board said, okay, we'll do that. So from that 6.5 mills, we went up to 8 mills because that soccer complex needed a lot of work. I don't think it had been watered for 3 years. There was brown grass everywhere. The irrigation system was in disrepair. The lighting was in disrepair. So we improved all that. And then we also had plans to improve Whittier softball diamonds over at Whittier Park. Now, these softball diamonds were used by Emporia High School softball. As of right now, because we renovated Flint Hills Optimist Diamonds, they are now playing down at Flint Hills Optimist Diamonds. The problem is those are youth baseball fields. The fencing is too long. They need to be around 200 feet. They go out to 250. So that's an issue, and I like to get them back over to Whittier Park and get those developed. Now, we also, during that time, had contracted partnerships like the Trussler Sports Complex, the Jones Aquatic Center, and we also did the USD253 after-school program, Rec Extra. The entities ERC works closely with to offer programming is Emporia State University, Flint Hills Tech College, the Arts Council, the City of Emporia, the Reds Youth Baseball and Emporia Energy Softball programs, and of course, USD 253. So I can go on and on and on the different groups we work on and work with. So if you have any, is that history good enough for you? Because it was just very quick.
No, I thought that was fascinating. I really like that.
You did? Okay. But but the Rec Commission did pass a resolution to move ahead and brought it to this board, and you passed a resolution. Other than that, the board, once the board certifies and approves the budget, and if it doesn't exceed 8 mils, it's a run-through for you. Now remember, you know those R&R statements you get in the mailbox and everybody in the world understands them? Well, I'm going to tell you, the first year it came out, that was a mess. But the first year when it came out, had the school district on there. Now, the second year, the last time it came out, the Rec Commission is a separate line item on there. So it's not really included in when it comes to the R&R. Basically, the Rec Commission just uses the tax base of the school district. Now, if we were a city recreation commission, we'd use the city's tax base. With a joint recreation commission, whoever has the largest tax base is what is used. Hutchison, the bigger tax base, it's a joint rec commission, but their tax base, they had to change some statutes to get it done. The city is a larger tax base in the school district, so it can be done either way.
You might touch on, one of the things that Pam talked about, but we do follow a formal budget process that's almost identical to what you folks do. We have, pass a tentative budget, we have to give public notification of that, we have a budget hearing to get approval, which mostly nobody shows up for, just like here, and then you pass the budget. So the procedure is virtually identical to what goes on here.
Very good, thank you.
Tom, I have just a question. Thinking about your current usage, like how many kids, from Emporia specifically, would you say are engaged in your youth programming? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Amen. No. I'll give you an example. At our board meeting on Monday, the board requested, usage on all our programs, and it included adults and youth on there. We have, overall, it's about almost close to 7,000 people that utilize our programs, and some of them multiple times. But youth, I don't have it broke down in my head right now, which is, and one of the requests that were made, what outside the school district usage there is, and it's 20%. We have people coming in from Chase County, Coffee County, using our programs. Osage County, so. I'm sorry, that was a good question. I need to get that memorized.
Do you want to share a little bit like what the next iteration of the recreation center is going to look like? What you're sort of thinking about in terms of building and space? Because I think it's fair to say you've kind of outgrown your space maybe.
Oh, yeah, big time. We, we have a steering committee is being put together, and we're gonna go in and look at hiring an architect to talk to them about what our needs are. And I'm not saying wants, I'm saying needs. Because right now, if you've ever come down to the rec center right now, people complain if they have to park on the street because the parking lot's full to go inside to use the walking track. So, but that's not the point. We need gymnasium space. We need an indoor aquatic center. We have a big therapeutic group that uses the current swimming pool. With the water temperature that's high, it's great for therapeutics, but it's not good for lap swimming. So we need to incorporate all those into one area. And then we also need a lot of programming space for our programs, in which we have one room, which is about this big, that we have to try to utilize all the time. Plus, there's this new sport called pickleball. And they're wanting more and more time in our gymnasium, and we just can't give it to them. So that's something we need to look into, is indoor pickleball, dedicated indoor pickleball space. So does that answer your question? I get rambling.
Tom, there was one thing I think would be important to mention. We put in that new golf zone simulator.
Oh.
And I think you had mentioned Monday night that we've made more within like maybe 2 months of having
No.
that.
Well, no, we made more on the first day than we did on racquetball for all last year.
Right, right. It's just a matter of having the services available. People will use it.
Yeah, and then they were using it when I left. It's used all the time. So, and if they have a problem, there's a phone in there. They can call. Boom, somebody will be right down. So,
Are there any other questions? Well, I think one of the reasons why we invited you to come tonight was because the Recreation Commission met on Monday night, and it's, passed a motion for a steering committee, and I think there was some surprise on my end and Dr. Harder's end, and I don't want to speak for Dr. Harder, that the school district wasn't invited to be a part of that process. And so we would love to have that discussion as a board, maybe with you. I know Jeremy has some things he probably wants to say, but we would like to figure out how we can revisit that, because as, a taxing authority that runs your mill levy, it just feels like a place we should be. And so we'd like to learn what the options are to revisit that.
okay, talk to Jeremy. He's our chairman. So,
Yeah, so I think throughout the process, there was just some miscommunication, which looking through the prior communications, I primarily attribute to myself. I think there were certain conversations that happened that I just forgot, and so we got a little bit ahead without bringing the school district in. And so for that, I apologize in particular to Dr. Harder, because I wasn't trying to cut anyone out. I think there was just so much going on. Some stuff got lost in translation. So right now, the MOU has the city and the rec commission both having 2 members, and then each entity has 1 at-large member that their bodies appoint. And the idea behind the at-large member was that we wanted some community representation and some diversity, so it just wasn't financial stakeholders. So I think the school district wants to be in on this. I think the fairest thing to do would probably be for the rec commission to pass an updated MOU that gives the same representation to 253, 2 members, and then 1 at-large person that the school district could appoint to represent the community and ensure that we have a lot of voices at the table. So if the school district and the school board are interested in doing that, I think what we would do is probably just call a special meeting of the rec commission and then update the MOU, and then it would be the city's move next. Mike, Tom, anything you want to add?
Well, I would just say that I was probably the gadfly that caused this to become public, because I worked here, as some of you know, I was here for 10 years. And I was appalled to think that the information that we'd received, that the school district was not interested in being a stakeholder in the steering committee, really angered me. And I also found it hard to believe, because I've known the people that work with the school district. I know how hard they work to make sure that the people of the district are taken care of. And of course, in one meeting I come to in 5 years, and Grant Riles, who's been here for 50, isn't here. So, but, you know, but Art was on here when I was here. And I've known Allison for a long time, and Jamie too, and Leslie I've known. So I was really appalled, and I stated that. And I was pleased to find out that I was wrong, that the school district wanted to have that representation. You know, the history of USD 253 and the Rec Commission is one of cooperation for many years. I can't remember a time since I came here in 1975 where there wasn't that type of cooperation, and certainly going through 4 different superintendents when in the 2000s, there was always that spirit of cooperation, and Rec Extra was something we took pride in providing for the school district, and I think it was a very successful program. You know, I want that to happen. And I think that the players here, which are really the city commission, USD 253, and the rec itself, all should have equal representation. I don't know why we're in such a big hurry to get this done. I also think that it's important to have members of the community because, and at large capacity and not in ex officio manner, to be involved with this, because we, as Tom has mentioned, I mean, the amount of participation is really mind-boggling to me. I mean, just for the soccer, for example, twice a year we have over 1,000 kids involved in just that program. Then and a lot of people don't realize how much adult participation there is. I found it out the hard way when I wanted to raise fees on the Silver Dolphins. It was not met with. It
was a quarter.
It was, and I mean, they were there the next meeting and let me know that was not a good idea. And so it's just important that we have all the stakeholders. And I know from my time on the school board that always trying to get the stakeholders to have their say in here has always been very important. And I would encourage that. And I think that Jeremy's right. We're going to have to basically toss out the MOU and maybe restart it and get school district input to get this thing done properly.
Well, I'm really, really glad we talked about this tonight because I didn't know. I mean, we get our reports from Jeremy and we hear, you know, that things are moving forward and you really want to look at building a new rec center and all those things. And I think that we all support that. But, you know, it's hard for us, and you know this, as a board, because we can't just talk about it. Right. So I'm really glad that we're talking about it tonight because we can't just have serial meetings outside of this about it. So this is really the first I'm hearing of this. And I would 100% support having some board members or, you know, school district representation on there. Because you're right, it does serve, it serves such a great purpose. Rec Extra was a wonderful program. I would have been lost without that as a working mom. My kids have done so many sports, and thank goodness my son is usually employed there as well. And so then I don't have to pay for his gas all the time. So I mean, I can't imagine not having a collaboration between the district and the rec center. They kind of seem like peanut butter and jelly to me. So thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us.
I do want to clarify something. So it was never brought to me to bring it to the board, and it was not brought to Jamie to have a board agenda item to talk about the rec center. So I do want to be very clear about that.
And and I will say, because as anybody that knows me, I can get pretty passionate about these things, and I was under the impression that it had been brought. We had information that indicated that, or I would not have been as vociferous as I was on Monday night. So I owe an apology to you and Jamie and the rest of the board, because I was just appalled that the board would not be interested.
And that was not accurate, so thank you.
Well, thank you for that, and I don't think you owe an apology because you were using information that you thought was accurate. Yeah. And Dr. Harder, I just want to apologize on behalf of the board that this has been your experience. Those of us who work with you, and I know the district leadership team and everyone in the district knows how transparent you are and how you want to advance our work as a district, but more than that, our work as a community. And so what has happened, we have to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
One thing that I was just thinking, because it's something you said, Mike, and, I know, Jeremy, you had said, well, we just reopened the MOU, we put 2 people on, and then we have 1 ex officio, but I feel like that puts us still behind as a school board, because I feel like the city and the rec commission were the ones negotiating the MOU, but we had no voice in negotiating the MOU, because I do think that not just having a third person represent, having a voice but no vote, like, I think we should also be at the table to negotiate what the MOU should look like. Otherwise, it's still leaving the school district behind, and that is not right.
I agree with you completely. I mean, that absolutely the truth, because I remember the first proposed MOU that we worked on had exactly that. Had two people from the city commission, 2 people from the school district, and 2 people from the rec. And then we were gonna try and fill in some extra deals.
No, that was the second one.
Was that the second one? Okay. So, but that was, I've always thought that. If you're going to, and for gosh sakes, I mean, to me, this is simple. If you're gonna finance this thing, and there's only one way you're gonna do it, you're gonna have to have a vote of the public. Well, if you don't treat your stakeholders properly, you're not gonna have the community support that you need to get that financial support. It's just a fact of life. So, I'm with you. I think you're absolutely right on that you ought to be involved, or the district ought to be involved in the negotiation.
I guess I'm not quite 100% understanding what you mean. So instead of just adding 2 members to the steering committee, you would like the board to also negotiate the MOU? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that in the past couple of months, and Jeremy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like there's been 5 versions of this, from what I'm hearing. There's been 5 versions of an MOU that they've played with. So that leads me to believe that the city and the Recreation Commission have been negotiating what would be in the MOU. And we were never brought to that table to negotiate on behalf of the school district. So my suggestion is that we, somehow in our motion tonight, we formally request that we have a place at the table equal to what the city and the Rec Commission have. But that we also say that's not good enough. We also want to negotiate what we need for our district in that MOU as well.
Ironically, when I was rather vociferously making my statement, was that I thought, if the school district really doesn't want to be involved with this, I said, well, maybe we ought to bring the MOU to the board and say they don't want to be involved with it. Because I was just stunned. I just did not believe it. And no, I think the board needs to be on there. I think the board needs to sign off on it. It needs to be the 3 stakeholders should all agree. This is what we're agreeing to. And, I think it's also important that Pam and Tom have both brought out that, the Rec Commission here is a little bit different than most places, because it is a jointly, basically, it was born as a result of the joint activities of the city and USD253. It can only be terminated by an affirmative act of both the USD253 and the city commission. And it is its own independent entity, but we have to have the elected officials be involved in the governance, because it is a public body. And so it's important that we have elected officials from the district involved with this.
I do know in Kansas Statute 12-1926, where they spell out the membership, it's very clear it's equal. It's 2, members of the city commission, 2 appointed by the school board. And I think that it's in the spirit of that, there should always be that same equality between the 3 entities every step of the way.
I do board trainings around the state because I'm the old guy. But we are the only recreation commission in the state with elected officials. We have a school board member and we have a city commissioner on it. All other rec commissions in the state have appointed people on the board. So we're unique in that way, so we do have elected officials.
So where would you like to go from here?
So what modifications to this motion are you suggesting then? Because I can get on board with pretty
Okay,
much anything at this point,
Let's play
but
around here.
Sure.
So I'm going to just say what I'm thinking, but this is not a formal motion, Casey. I'm just going to give you a chance to maybe type something. So I move that the board task Dr. Harder and the board president to work with the Emporia Recreation Commission and the city of Emporia to discuss, to formally request inclusion in the steering committee process, and that the MOU, sorry, Casey, and that the MOU process be reopened so the school district has an opportunity to discuss the parameters of the MOU.
Your official motion. You want me to wait till you're done typing?
Yes, we're going to let Casey type it and then read it back to us.
Okay, I may have missed part of it in the middle. I move that the board task Dr. Harder and the board president to work with the Emporia Recreation Commission and the city of Emporia to formally request, here's where I may have missed part of it, inclusion, and that the MOU process be reopened so that the school district can rediscuss the parameters.
That would be inclusion on the steering committee. But I'd like to emphasize equal inclusion on the steering committee.
Request equal. I'm going to read it back one more time. I move that the board task Dr. Harder and the board president to work with the Emporia Recreation Commission and the city of Emporia to formally request equal inclusion on the steering committee, and that the MOU process be reopened to the school district so that the school district can rediscuss the parameters.
I think that works. So I do need someone to repeat that from memory, please.
It should pop up for you as soon as I hit voting.
Okay, so we,
So you want someone to read it when it pops up on the screen then? Or are you just waiting for a second? Was Jamie's motion, like her saying it, the actual motion, or just?
That works, so I just need
Okay.
a second.
I second. Thanks.
we have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Does that pop up for you? Can you see the motion? Okay. Okay. Updated. Jen, I don't have your vote. Yep, it's corrected. Motion passes 6-0. Do you
Thank
want to
you.
take a look at it on the board if you want to make sure? Or on your computer, it should be updated.
Passes 6-0. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 9A, district highlights. Dr. Harder?
All right. So we had our end of the year in December, and so just kind of covering January. So professional learning time, when our staff came back, principals and our certified staff do a great job with our professional development. They do a great job teaching each other and getting input. So I was able to join William Allen White and Walnut as they discussed how they're addressing and improving student behavior as well as academic achievement. They covered a lot of other areas, but those are the two that I was able to sit in on. On January 11th, I attended the high school boys swim invitation. The upgrades to the pool are amazing. It was full, the bleachers were full, kids were around, our student athletes were in the area. The glass was as clear and free of condensation, so it just looks amazing. So if you haven't had a chance to go out there, it looks really nice. Our new scoreboard and video board, very exciting. There's been some questions about painting. We are going to paint, but we need professionals to really come in as high as the ceilings are, and the area is huge. So we will be painting it. I know that that really highlights that it needs painted, but the video board looks amazing, new scoreboard. I talked to Rick Eckert during halftime, and he was talking about it's a little more complicated than the previous one. So he was looking for some shortcuts, but great improvement. Our Horizon Award winners, our last time was in 2019. So we're just so proud of Blair Conley and Allison Jones. I was able to come in their classrooms a little bit later that day after they had a telephone call from Dr. Randy Watson, our education commissioner. They were really excited and very humble. So we'll have it's in February when they'll have the actual ceremony for that. Snow days, you would not think that would make it to the highlights, but you know what? We were fortunate with the timing of no school on January 12th and then on MLK Day on January 15th. And we've only had 2 full days and 1 delay, so just very thankful for that. Also, a big shout out to our staff members, especially transportation and maintenance for transportation. Both Michelle and Jasmine joined me, and we all drive different areas, and we're communicating, and so they do a great job. Very thankful not to get up at 4:30 to go out and check the roads, so they do a nice job. And our maintenance department has done a really, really nice job with our parking lots and the schools, and then also our city has done a nice job. If there's some streets that, when I was out driving one of the snow days, there were some areas that needed to be cleaned, and texted Trey Cocking, and he was taking care of it, so very thankful for them. And then Good News Friday, KVOE. Our first good news was on January the 5th, and we have each school is scheduled to complete a Google form with 2 to 3 fun activities or celebrations that are happening in that school. Jones Early Childhood Development Center was our first school that was highlighted, and then Logan was next, then Riverside, and then Timmerman will be up this Friday. And a big thank you to KVOE for working with us to make it a reality. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I also want to echo my appreciation to the transportation department and the maintenance department. I even know on weekends, they're showing up to turn on those buses all weekend long to make sure that they start. And it had to have been really bad for no one's buses to start, it felt like, anywhere.
Yes, thank you so much for highlighting that, because yes, they were coming in every day to start them. So thank you. Yes, they work really hard.
Great. The next item on the agenda is item 10A, future board calendar dates. We will be meeting at our new time at 6 p.m. On February 7th, February 28th, and March 27th. And the final item is item 11A, adjournment.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.